So welcome to this live training, in which I'm going to talk about surviving to thriving. I'm going to talk about polyvagal theory and how it relates to recovery from ME/CFS, fibromyalgia, long COVID and related conditions. So if you are watching live, do just let me know, say hi. If you're watching replay, just put #replay. So as I say, in this video I'm going to explore polyvagal theory and how it relates to recovery from ME/CFS, etc. Polyvagal theory was developed by Dr Stephen Porges, and it sheds light on how we can move out of survival into the healing state. So let's get into it. Nervous system dysregulation can result in health issues, and the roots of these issues may be related to trauma, adverse childhood experiences, chronic stress, having an ongoing health challenge, for example. Donna says hi. Hello, Donna. Thanks for letting me know that you can hear. So the autonomic nervous system controls certain functions automatically, like your digestion, your heartbeat, your breathing, your body temperature. But it also manages your survival and stress response. So Stephen Porges coins this concept called neuroception, and he talks about how our neural circuits distinguish whether the situation is safe, threatening, or dangerous. So polyvagal theory is based on the idea that the autonomic nervous system, I'll call it ANS for short, has three distinct branches, okay, each associated with different evolutionary stages and responses. And there are three distinct ways of responding to the environment. So I'm getting some hellos, one from Becky. Hi, Becky. So first of all, if we focus on the parasympathetic branch of the autonomic nervous system, the oldest part of that is known as the dorsal vagal complex. Okay, I talked about this briefly in the last video, but we'll go into a little bit more detail. So it's the oldest and most primitive part of the ANS, and it's responsible for immobilization and conservation behaviors. So it will be activated in situations where you can't fight or run. It can lead to shutdown, collapse, or fainting responses. This branch helps conserve energy in situations of extreme threat. Now, I did talk about this in this video, so do check that out, okay? So the next branch of the autonomic nervous system, the ANS, is the sympathetic branch. And this is associated with fight, flight. And, this is all about mobilization, okay? It prepares the body for action in response to perceived threats. It increases heart rate, increases blood flow, which are directed to the muscles so that the body is ready to do some work during stress. And again, I made a video talking about the signs that your body is in fight or flight. So do check that out. Okay. And then there is the ventral vagal branch of the parasympathetic nervous system. And this is the most recent evolutionary addition to the ANS. It promotes social engagement, relaxation. When active, we're more likely to socially interact, have emotional regulation, a sense of safety, and it helps individuals connect to others and adapt to social situations. And in this state, we're safe, we're relaxed, we're calm, we're connected to others, our breathing is slow and regulated. So polyvagal theory suggests that being in this state is really important for our well-being and functioning. Okay, now when the autonomic nervous system works well, we can shift states. Okay, so let's give you an example of that. If you live in the UK, you may recall an advert. It was an advert for a newspaper in which a woman's walking along the street, and you see a chap who I think he's a skinhead, running towards her, and he looks aggressive. And then the camera pans back and you see that this woman is walking near a building site and some bricks are just about to fall off a tray, and this chap pushes her out of the way and potentially saves her life. And the point of the advert is you need a different perspective to understand what's going on. Okay, now let's imagine that chap is called Bob and he's running towards a woman called Anne. Okay, Anne sees Bob running towards him and she immediately goes into the freeze response. Okay, now he pushes her to the ground. She's still in a state of alarm because she doesn't understand what's going on, but she hears the sound of bricks crashing to the ground nearby. Her friend James is across the road and he sees her and he runs over and he explains what's happened. So as she's getting up, she starts to realise that, this chap, Bob, was, looking out for her safety. And when she realises that she's safe, she starts coming out of that state of alarm, that state of freeze. She's shaken. She gives her friend James a hug, and she gives Bob a hug, and James gives Bob a hug as well. Now, earlier that day, James had been at a meeting and his boss is a bit of a bully. So in that meeting, he shuts down. His engagement is low because he knows if he says something that his boss might kind of jump on what he says and pick it apart. His energy is low, and so he's kind of withdrawing. Okay, so each of those responses is unconscious and automatic. Okay, now they all decide afterwards to go to the pub. They have a drink, they calm down, they start having a laugh, they realise they're safe with each other, even though Anne and James have only just met Bob. And their nervous system goes into that parasympathetic state of ventral vagal, calm, connection, etc. Okay. Now, I'd like you to consider that we can activate different parts of the autonomic nervous system at the same time. So, for example, imagine going on a roller coaster ride with a friend and you're both experiencing a bit of fear. You both like the idea of doing the roller coaster ride, and so there's a bit of fear, but there's also excitement. You're screaming and laughing at the same time. Okay, so in that situation, you're activating a bit of the parasympathetic ventral vagal. There's some connection, but you're also activating some of the sympathetic arousal. Imagine someone's having to give a speech, a presentation. One person might feel a lot of fear, so they're activating the fight-flight response, and another person who's doing the same presentation in another room might feel a little bit of fear, but they also feel excitement. They love presenting, they love having an audience, they love connecting and interacting with people, and they usually get a laugh out of the audience. So that's two people doing the same thing, but they're having different experiences. Okay. Equally, imagine someone's doing a strenuous activity that they enjoy. Maybe they're doing a team sport, so there's the sense of togetherness. The team are together trying to beat the other team. If someone's doing an individual sport, maybe there's a sense of healthy competition. A friend of mine does Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, and she showed me videos of her in competition, and she's rolling around the floor fighting with this other person. But at the end of the fight, the two of them give each other a hug, and they, she showed me this video, they were chatting to each other while still kind of having their arms around each other. So there was, in that situation, it was a kind of friendly competition. That might not always be the case. Okay, but it's just to be aware of that when we're in a healthy state, our body can, number one, switch between states. It can activate a bit of each state. Okay, so the issue is when we experience trauma, chronic stress, ongoing health challenges, we can get stuck in that survival mode, and Also, the autonomic nervous system can be a bit faulty. It's a bit like a smoke alarm that goes off when you boil the kettle. Okay, if you've ever had that experience, let me know. Um, Again, I made a video where I talk about being stuck in survival, so check that video out. Okay, but being stuck in that state of survival is not good for our long-term health and well-being. Okay, and it can result in us developing adaptive strategies, which are an attempt to get out of the experience of feeling discomfort. Might be drinking, smoking, taking drugs. Maybe you can share, if you want, what your go-to strategy is that you recognize, is an adaptive strategy. It is an attempt to keep you safe or to help you survive, but you recognize it's not so helpful. I was working with someone recently who recognized that when they're upset, their go-to strategy is to binge on eating biscuits, chocolate, etc. Okay, my strategy was to go into distraction activities, which actually would lead me to feel more depleted. So if I was watching an action movie, then I was already in a stress state, it would just leave me feeling more wired. And there were times when I went to bed feeling absolutely wired and not really sleeping very well as a result. Okay, so Donna says I go to sleep. Okay, so that's understandable. All right. So any trauma can make it more likely that we experience health challenges. Okay, and this can include early experiences, neglect, abuse, having the feeling that we're not safe a lot of the time. Okay, this can result in chronic stress and make us more prone to health challenges later in life. Okay, so the question is, how do we make that shift from being in that state of fight, flight, freeze into the ventral rest and digest response? Okay, so I talked about this notion of this ladder. So the dorsal state is the bottom of the ladder, then there's the fight or flight, then there's the ventral state. Okay, now some people do think that in order to shift from the dorsal to ventral, we have to go through fight, flight. Okay, there are different schools on this. I've been reading a book by Stanley Rosenberg, who's a very experienced body therapist, and he's worked with Stephen Porges, who developed the polyvagal theory, and he says it's actually not necessary to go from 3 to 2, so from dorsal to sympathetic arousal to ventral. Okay, so for example, he gives the example that if someone's in that depressed state, then actually doing something that's going to arouse your sympathetic nervous system response can actually bring you out of a state of depression. There's good research that shows that. But let's look at some strategies for each stage. Okay, so with dorsal vagal shutdown, let's just go back to that slide a minute. Then there are some certain strategies we might employ. First is breathing mindfully. We know that a powerful way of actually regulating our nervous system is to focus on your breath. So slow diaphragmatic breathing can help activate the parasympathetic nervous system and move you out of that immobilization state. I will maybe do another video where I talk about different strategies for breathing. So if you'd like that, just put the word breathe in the chat so that I know there's interest in me doing that. Okay. So some other strategies are co-regulation strategies. So feeling safety in connection. So having a person, either a member of your family, friend, who you feel safe with, can actually help you get into that parasympathetic state. Okay, so Donna's saying breathe. All right. Being with animals, obviously, who we feel safe with, can also be another way of getting co-regulation into that ventral vagal state. Self-regulation strategies, well, I've just mentioned breathing, using breathing technique. You can either do that with someone else in their presence. So for instance, when I go to a meditation class, there's something about being in a room with other people doing the meditating that is powerful, and I always sleep better as a result. Okay, so that's something obviously you can do on your own, but you can also do it with other people. Other strategies: listening to calming music, doing very gentle movement, maybe some gentle yoga, going for a gentle slow walk. Okay, giving yourself a hug. Peter Levine talks about giving yourself this hug, and I've talked about in another video doing this butterfly hug, where you literally just move your hands in this way. You might time it to your breath, so I might, as I breathe in, raise one hand, as I breathe out, lower it, as I breathe in, raise the other hand, as I breathe out, lower it. Okay, so there are a few strategies that you might explore. Actually, a couple of other things I did write down is progressive muscle relaxation. So tensing your right foot, releasing it. Tensing your right calf, releasing it. Tensing your upper leg and releasing it. Then doing the same with your left leg, doing the same with your right hand, right arm, left hand, left arm. Tensing your belly, release. Tensing your lower back, release. Okay, going through your whole body, going through your head. Again, I've made a video on that, so check that out. The other thing, just engaging in grounding exercises. So again, I did make a video where I looked at some strategies for stimulating the vagus nerve, so check that video out as well. But for instance, just simply feeling your feet on the floor, having an awareness of your environment, just noticing the things that you see. Maybe looking at that object over there, I can see a picture. Okay, I might look at 3 objects. I'm looking at my microphone. I'm looking at my phone. So just focusing on 3 objects. Then you might focus on 3 sounds that you hear. Okay, and then 3 physical sensations. The contact between my feet and my socks. The contact between my fingers. The contact between my arms and my shirt. Okay, so that's a way of just grounding yourself. So what about sympathetic arousal? Well, all the things that I've just mentioned can help. With sympathetic arousal, we can do activities that have increased intensity, if physically you can manage that, if your energy allows that. So whereas with the dorsal vagal state, we are focusing on gentle. With sympathetic, we might use our body in a more intense way. So dancing, shaking. You know, there was a time when I was feeling very angry and frustrated, and I actually punched some pillows. Okay, and it was a way of just discharging that energy, because when we're in that fight or flight, that is designed to mobilize us. So if we don't use up the chemicals, the hormones that are running around our body, they can actually cause dysfunction. All right, now it might be that there are other things. If you think about the fight flight response, it might be that we need to set boundaries with people. We might need to be assertive. I talk about the 5Ds. For instance, if someone's feeling stressed and overwhelmed and they're in that fight flight response, I talk about the 5Ds. 5Ds are do it, delete it, delegate it if you can, defer it, or divide it into smaller tasks. Okay, and that can help us. Obviously, in overwhelm, we might be in that stressed sympathetic state. We might move into that shutdown and withdrawal, disassociation. Okay, so just bear that in mind. Other things that we can do that aren't part of the polyvagal approach or is not discussed in stuff I've seen is to do the therapeutic work, parts work, inner child work, brain training. Okay, so all these things can help us get into that ventral vagal state. Okay, and once we're in that state, we can practice strategies to help us strengthen being in that vagal state. Okay, so I've actually just made a video for people doing my Building Resilience course where I actually literally went through some physical strategies, including massage, including massaging your ears, massaging your head, maybe massaging your body. Also exploring, playing around with acupressure points. And obviously with acupressure points, certain points you should not do if you're pregnant. Okay, so talk to your doctor, etc., before doing any of those things. But think this is a whole nother video, how we expand our capacity to be in the ventral vagal state and do certain practices which include adopting healthy lifestyle patterns that can help us stay in that ventral vagal state. I'll say that is a video for another time. But let's check with you, what is one thing that you can take away from this video? Pop it in the chat. What is something that you could practice if you recognize you are in that dorsal vagal shutdown state? What's one thing you could practice if you recognize you're in sympathetic arousal? As I mentioned, if your energy is still limited, then maybe doing the more intensive movement stuff that you might do when you're in sympathetic state might not be appropriate. Therefore, consider what could you do from the things I've mentioned. Obviously, if you need to revisit the video, make notes, then do that. You can always pause the video. But let me know in the chat. But we've been going about 20 minutes, so maybe that's long enough for now. If you'd like to end with a very brief relaxation, just put an R in the chat. So I did create this video for people who are doing my Building Resilience course. So for those people, I will say, check out the resources in the bonus sections. Okay, so I invite you to close your eyes. Obviously, only close your eyes if it's safe to do so. I invite you just to connect to your breath. Breathe in through your nose as long as that's comfortable. Into your belly. Breathe out of your nose. As you breathe in and out, just allow your out breath to be a little longer than your in breath. When you do that, you're activating your parasympathetic nervous system response, the rest and digest response. So as you breathe in and out, I invite you just to tune in to your right foot. Just have a sense of the toes, the sole of the foot, the top of the foot, the whole foot. As you have that awareness of your right foot, you might imagine it as a colour. Now imagine that colour spreading from your foot into your ankle, into your calf, into the shin. Now spreading into your upper leg. And now focus on your left foot. Just having a sense of the toes, the sole, the heel, the top of the foot. Now imagine that colour spreading from your left foot into your ankle, into your lower leg, the calf, the shin, spreading into your knee, and now into the upper part of the leg. Now imagine that colour and those feelings of relaxation spreading into the area around your hips, spreading into your stomach, into your lower back, spreading into your chest and upper back, spreading down your right arm from the right shoulder into the upper arm, the elbow, the lower part of the arm, the whole of your right hand, all the way to your fingers. And now focusing on your left shoulder, left upper arm, left elbow, lower arm, all the way into your left hand. Now imagine that colour spreading into your neck, into your head, to the muscles around the jaw, your cheeks, the muscles around your eyes, the muscles around your ears, all the muscles in your scalp. Just have that sense now of your whole body, feeling those feelings of relaxation. So when you're ready, you can either just allow yourself to continue to relax for a little while, or if you're ready now, you can open your eyes, bring yourself back. So thanks for watching. Do leave a comment, do like, subscribe for more content. Keep going. Got any questions, get in touch. Wishing you great health. Bye for now.